Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast, sponsored by Lucky Star Gin, and I'm your host Mike, as usual. And with me today on our panel, we've got both Paul and Neil. Today, we're going to be covering the bullying of the EFL New Boys, and we're going to be looking forward to hosting our very first League Cup match with Cambridge United. Engagement is obviously very important. I keep drumming home the message. We've had a lot of engagement over the last couple of days, or last 24 hours, I think, with the various different things I've been very excited about posting up. But please do like, comment, share on all the posts. It just really helps get it in front of more eyes and more people to talk and enjoy the podcast. We're going to just jump in and say hi because we've got a lot to get through today. So, Neil, hasn't been planned like this, but you were on for the last game of last season, and you're on for the first game of this season. How's your summer been?
It's been a good summer, very frustrating, trying to keep on top of an allotment because there's no sunshine and the only thing that's growing in the rain are the weeds. So if weeds were vegetables, I'd be all right, but you can't eat weeds.
Right. This podcast is very soon going to get a reputation of last season we had running. This season we've had talk of sheds and allotments. It's going to get a reputation soon. Paul, again, completely coincidental and unplanned. You were also on for that very same episode at the last season.
Was I?
And the first for this season. How was your summer?
Good, thanks, Mike. Happy top of the league weekend, everyone. I watched a bit of cricket, so that was good fun. That was all 6 weeks of the cricket season, but here we are again, back in the football season, so that was good. And got out on the bike. So I like a cycle, so got out on the bike plenty.
Nothing else you don't want to talk about how much you enjoyed holding aloft the brick trophy?
I was runner-up. With oh, yes, we played the fans game, didn't we, Mike? We last did the fans game.
Yes. And you were on the winning team with all the children, and Stuart was on last week. To be honest, I haven't really been looking around much club news today. I've been just too busy tweeting things. But the one thing I wanted to mention is obviously the Sports Trust. Pop along, make sure you bring your tenors, join it. We've got to do a real push this year. Alison's chairperson, especially things like away travel on the coaches. They're not doing one to Barrow, but I think it's because they didn't get much interest. So if you are interested in any of the trips, make sure they know you're interested so they can book it and they can plan their numbers. I think the next one, the first one's Newport. They need at least 30. And it's 30 quid, about an 8:30 start or something. But check at the hub and they'll just tell you. And do the 50-50 tickets as well, because I missed them yesterday. I said no because I had no change. And as he was walking off, I think he had one of the little tappy machines as well. So I don't think there's any excuses anymore. So do the 50-50s and get more money into that supporters club as well. Right. I think I did that very, very quickly. I hope everyone gets to listen to it on slow speed. But we've got to talk about yesterday. For the first time in quite a while, we're going to talk a lot about the match. Gandamonium, someone who followed Gandamonium has very helpfully found the definition. It is definitely what's classed as a drubbing. Not a rout, because that has to be to nil. It's a drubbing. I try and make sure I usually have at least a couple of positive points on every game. And today I'm a little bit overloaded, so there will be things that we're going to miss. First time in a long time, I wasn't sure about the lineup. I thought Ben might have been being saved for the real games. I wasn't sure about Harry. Neil, I know you've got something to say on Harry, but if I come to you, Paul, first, what was your thought on the lineup when it was announced who was starting?
I genuinely didn't have a real Scooby-Doo really about that lineup. Who was going to play? Who was going to be star? I haven't seen any of the pre-season games. Deliberately kept away from them. So it was refreshing to see. I think it was about 5 new signings started, didn't it? So I think the biggest surprise possibly for me was that Harry started. Actually, I mean, I think there was a lot of chat maybe beforehand that his season faded a bit, and maybe he's fading a little bit. But so it was actually, and the players coming in, I was surprised he started, but absolutely, well, proved me wrong. And what a game he had! So it was, which was fantastic. And we had 5 new signings, and they all absolutely were out the traps, weren't they? Brilliant.
It's amazing. I mean, that does lead us very nicely, because Neil made a point about Harry. Because again, I think a lot of people were like yourself: is he fading off? Are we going to miss him too much? Obviously, we had Ali last year, who kind of was above him in the pecking order. But Neil, what were you saying yesterday about your thoughts about Harry?
Well, I agree with Paul, because I got 10 out of 11, but the thing I didn't have Harry in my starting 11. I thought Clay would play, that we'd be on the back foot, and that we'd have Clay and Eastman literally sort of putting up the shutters to just sort of try and limit, everything that Notts County would throw at us. But in terms of sort of Harry, I think we saw the old Harry, because, I'd forgotten he scored 11 goals in 40 appearances in the last National League season. He obviously had the nasty shoulder injury 2 seasons ago. He was playing with the hernia, and I think we've not seen Harry being fit for 2 years. But yesterday was a fit Harry, and he was totally different. He didn't give the ball up very easily. He was moving. He scored, a typical Harry goal from being, a true attacking midfielder. He also had a good shot as well, that, a snapshot. So I think that was the Harry of old. So now that's his shirt. And plus also, he's one of the older members of the squad at 31, and he played 109 minutes, and he was still running hell for leather right at the end. So, Harry, really, I thought his performance yesterday was outstanding in a team of outstanding performers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad myself that I've decided to drop the player of the day business, because you guys would have absolutely struggled. So, but yeah, trying to sort of go through it bit by bit. We had a very fast start, and I mean, Joe, the little fella in the box, as I tweeted earlier, scored an early goal. Do we think that perhaps the clamps gif has had anything to do with it? Because we brought back the gif for the clamps, and suddenly he's scoring again. We could say it's coincidence, but come on, these are facts. What did you think of that goal, Paul? I mean, they missed all the big fellas, and they got little Joe.
Clear correlation with the GIF, absolutely. I thought more broadly, those first 3 minutes, I mean, summed up. I thought where we were strong, really. Straight from kick-off, ball went up, and Harry Smith flicked it on, and I thought, well, we're not going to lose much in the air there. And then that set piece, and we've seen it before, haven't we? So they're all too busy looking at the big guys in the middle, and Kizzy sneaking around the back and just gets past his man and heads it home. So that was fantastic. And just the intensity of the play as well. I thought it's just absolutely out the traps, the intensity of the team throughout, and we just put under so much pressure. And I thought that those 3 elements were typified throughout the 90, really. Just strong in the air, strong in set pieces, and just all over them. So, but great to see Joe on the score sheet, which is with something that's clearly pre-planned, something off the park.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, say little Joe, just in case anyone doesn't actually realise, he's 6'2", 6'3", but he looks little compared to when he's with Omar, Ben, and Harry up front. But Neil, what was your thoughts? I mean, I think you wanted us to have a fast start, but you didn't quite believe it.
No, I thought I was right. I turned up at the wrong match, actually. So, because it was so, it was everything about yesterday was so different about everything before. You know, we've got the speed back in the team that we sort of lack from, again, going back to the last National League season from Tanto and from David Ajiboye, because, you know, Josh Coley has got a serious turn of pace, so Scott Kashket. And, you know, that just means that we're getting to the ball, you know, we have a chance of getting to the balls over the top. The quality of delivery, you know, whereas last year, you know, crosses were just hitting defenders, were just not being placed in the right place. They were just speed, precision, all the things that we didn't have last season.
Yeah.
And it typified it led to all of the goals. It was all about speed and precision.
I mean, one bit of speed certainly took me by surprise, because yes, we were told that he's quick, but Scott Kashket for the red card. I mean, watching back on the replay, first of all, you got Harry putting a bit more pace than I thought he had, pressing their left back, I think it was, and then the ball got passed in. He was under pressure, and Scott just literally, I don't know how fast it was, but he pelted down there, and he was. I mean, all game he was like a Harry up front. He was a real pest, a wasp, like hassling people all the time. I mean, the red card, there's been some dispute from Notts County fans whether it was a red. I mean, what did you guys say? I mean, we had warnings. I think we had two cards for fairly softish challenges in the first few minutes before that, so they should have really known. What did you think of the red, Neil? Do you think it was justified?
I've looked back at it. If I've read the rules, and the rules said if it's denied a clear goal scoring opportunity, which it is, because in effect he was just about to take back his left foot and shoot because he was round the keeper, so it did stop. I think the other player wasn't in the right place, wasn't close enough to cover properly. And the irony was, again with the rules, because they've taken away the double jeopardy, had it been in the box, it would have been a penalty and only a yellow card for the keeper, which actually, with retrospect, may have actually been suited Notts County better, because they'd have probably been 2-0 down, but they would have had 11 men on the pitch. So, it because of the very low threshold for dishing out cards, I think a red card was inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, Neil's touched on it there, and a lot of their fans are saying the defender was covering. Now, my thing is, if the defender was covering, why couldn't your keeper have left the defender deal with it then? If that is the case, he should have said, well, we've seen all these yellow cards. We know what the new rules are. Let's not give the ref any excuse to give me a card. Obviously, all these things can't run through your brain, but if he'd left it to the defender, would the defender have cleared it?
Yeah, don't give the referee an opportunity to give the red, wasn't it? And I've looked it back, and it's close, isn't it? But it feels like he had a clear shot on goal, and so it is a red. But you know, back to that whole how well we played. Don't get yourselves in that position in the first place. We were all over them and forced that turnover and forced the red card. So it was. But I think it was I think it was a red. Yeah.
Have you listened to Williams's post match? And he doesn't say it wasn't a red, and he says you can't blame the fact we're down to 10 men, on that. And anybody who says that it did is a liar. So he really did castigate his team.
Yeah.
Well, I try to be objective and I try to be fair, and I kind of think, how would we feel if that was given to us? And I think genuinely, if the same situation had happened to us, we probably would have all went, oh, for God's sake, come on. That's annoying, but a fair red. So I think we would have accepted it. But Scotty, he also hit the bar. So this could have been a lot worse. I mean, at the point, I have to say, we're going to talk about it, I'm sure, later. Harry Smith endearing himself to Sutton fans very quickly in his career by just helping the keeper remember that he was supposed to leave the pitch at that moment in time. That's very, very helpful of Harry. Then we got Patrick Omari. doing a 1-2 with a defender and almost scoring again, just dipping the wrong side of the bar. Then he linked up very well with Josh. I didn't realise how good it was again until I saw it back, with him coming right inside to almost the penalty spot and calling for the ball. He said that that's something they've worked on with Junior Lewis in training, so obviously that's working. And yeah, so in the second half, where Josh broke down our side, I'm not sure if everyone picked it up because it certainly wasn't on the highlights. As soon as he whipped that ball in, almost the second after it left his foot, he started blowing kisses to the crowd. And it's like one of those, he knew it was a good cross and it landed on Patrick's head for apparently his first ever headed goal. At that point, we're 3-0 up. How were you feeling at that point, Paul?
Surprised. Well, I guess, everything was going right, wasn't it? But it was like, just couldn't believe it. I mean, everything was going right, wasn't it? It's just the link-up play, the crossing, and the finishing itself. It was just like, it was bonkers, absolutely bonkers. And at 3-0, you just thought, and they didn't have a sniff, did they? Really? And you thought, even at 3-0, 3-0 was the switch where you thought, okay, I think we're pretty safe now. That was certainly the way we were playing. So it was just great fun, and all those goals down our end, of course, which was a bonus in the chucking rain.
Absolutely, yeah. The rain was misfitting. Neil, how are you feeling at 3-0 with Amari's double at that point?
Well, like Paul, I didn't believe it was happening. I wanted somebody to pinch me, and I thought I was dreaming. But the thing I thought, not to be disingenuous to previous Sutton favourites, we'd have never have had a cross that good from David Ajiboye, and certainly Will Randall would never have put that header in from the left wing. So and I was it was such a quality header. I find it really hard to believe that he's never scored one with his head before.
Yeah, absolutely.
He seemed to hang for ages, and he like a basketball player, just like yeah, brilliant. Then we had a little glimpse of Aidan O'Brien. If things weren't going well enough up front, Aidan O'Brien come on and had some great touches, including a really, really clever ball to Harry for Harry to score our fourth. Which kind of was, I see, this is the icing on the cake now. This can't be topped, surely.
Yeah.
Again, at 4, what were your thoughts, Neil? We were in dreamland at 3.
I mean, as Neil mentioned the word quality there, and I think that's what really shone through. You were watching stuff that you're thinking, I haven't seen this down here for a while. And this, especially at the start of the season as well, that it was all linking together like this. They all seemed to be, the patterns were working, and they all seemed to know where they were, and then the end product was fantastic. And in terms of Aidan O'Brien's, there was a real team ethic about that. I thought, it's 3-0. He's got a half chance to have a crack himself, and he's pushing for a place, and yet he sees the better option, puts it to Harry, and slots it home. So I thought that was it was a nice indication that they're clicking and playing for each other. Yeah,
I mean we did concede then, Neil. It was at the other end, so we couldn't quite see it, but on the replays, whilst it does seem like there was potentially a foul on Ben, you could also argue that for our fourth, Smith fouled their defender as well. So we allow one, we allow the other. But at 4-1, very typical Sutton, how many other teams in the Football League start sitting there going, uh-oh? How were you feeling at the time at 4-1, Neil?
I would just like to sort of go back and finish off with Paul's point. The thing about Aidan O'Brien was how much time he had on the ball and how he didn't panic, which again, last season we used to panic and take sort of snapshots and things like that when it wasn't the right thing to do. It was just cool, calm, collected. That again, a step up in class, and that ball was superb. I would have, going back to their goal, I didn't think it was a foul looking back on it. And I think Ben was caught flat-footed because I think he was showing the beginnings of the cramp that ultimately saw him going off. So that's why Langstaff, I think, had him for pace there. So looking back, I'd say, to be fair, I don't think it was any more of a foul than some of the ones that, related to our goal. So I agree with you. I think that was a fair goal and just shows that, County were dangerous. They've got some talented players there. So you do have to be careful.
Yeah. We've kept McGoldrick and Longstaff down to 1 goal. And that's and there'll be a lot of teams who won't be doing that this year.
Yeah.
No,
but
absolutely.
I did worry. I thought they would score at 4-1. I thought they'd get the next goal.
Yeah.
And then we came to the, our 5th goal, which was just the cherry on top of the icing.
Yeah. Okay, so then we had the icing on the cake. Just to explain to everyone, we've had some issues recording. So this is going to be a bit of a mix and match, and I'm going to put it all together. And it'll be fine. No one will ever know difference. Anyway, we had Eastie hitting the post as well. I think it was 5-1. So this could have been like an absolute disaster for Notts County. It wasn't bad, but it could have been a disaster for them. I did ask Matt a question earlier, and I asked him, did he want this to be known as Matty Ball or Grey Ball? He said he didn't mind either way. He's fine. But you guys have hinted this is kind of the football he's been talking about for a long time. The relentless, the aggressive, just chasing things down and scoring in a variety of different ways, although a couple of them were carbon copies. There were crosses from the wings and in. But how were you at 5-1? Apart from soaking wet, how were you guys at 5-1 when that final whistle went?
I mean, that was, delirious. That's why you go to football, isn't it? Just days like that. I mean, it was the first game of the season anyway. So, there was a spring in the step anyway, wasn't there? Getting to the marquee, saying hello to people that haven't seen for ages, having a beer, getting to your spot, seeing everyone. And then there's just the buzz of the game. And then just a start like that was just fantastic. So, yeah, absolutely flying. And as you mentioned, there could have been more. And I think Luke Williams said that in his interview, didn't he? And I think he was interviewed by his own mob, and they said, can you take any positives in the game? And he said, yeah, that we didn't lose 10-1. And he's right. I mean, it was an absolute mauling, wasn't it? And it wasn't that. I mean, obviously 10 men helped a little bit, but even without that, I think we would have given them an absolute drubbing. Because we played teams with 10 men before and struggled as teams do. So playing 10 men does not guarantee that kind of performance and scoreline, does it? So no, absolutely fantastic.
Lovely. And Neil, there was another nice moment where Amari, when he got substituted, he walked around the full length of the pitch and he was shaking hands, high-fiving all the young uns. So it took him about half an hour to get around the pitch, but that was again a nice moment for someone on their debut, scored 2 goals, and then they had that reception from the fans as well. He must have been delighted.
He looked as if he was back in love with football again. But you notice as well, he was patting the club's crest as he walked around the pitch. That was very much to say sort of that that this was home, which was lovely, that he sort of feels part of the setup. And he's only been with us 10 days, and he barely knew half of the other players that he was playing with. So,
he's also drilled into it and got into the ethos, because in his interview he said it's only 3 points. You don't get more points for scoring more goals. And I was like, what the hell has gone on here? You can't be doing this. But yeah, it's 3 points. Yeah, it's funny to mock, especially some of the bigger teams who didn't get 3 points and we're now top of the league. But I think, I can't remember which one of you said it to me, but one of you said 47 points to go. And that has to be the mantra. But we've got to enjoy it. On enjoying it, I haven't got, even though we switched recording things, I still didn't have a sound bite. But we're going to do a new thing. I'm not doing player of the day anymore. Because what I was finding is people were voting for their man of the match and they weren't quite doing what I was expecting. So what we're doing now is a new segment, and it's going to be moment of the match. So it's basically any moment in the match that you thought, that is the bit that I want to remember when I go through this match. That's the bit I want to remember. There are going to be hundreds of them, but I want you to try and narrow it down. I've got 3 or 4, so I'll go last. But Paul, should we start with you? What's your moment of the match from yesterday?
I was wrestling with two. One was Harry Buteman's nice movement and touch for the fourth goal, not the obvious pass one, the one before that. I think he brought it down lovely. Not clipped it over the top of the player, brought it down, put it down the wing, cross came in, and we scored on the fourth goal. And that was just summed up Harry Buteman's day. So it was just lovely to see him come back. But I've gone for nothing to do with what was on the pitch. The scoreboard, I think, it must have been about 5:30 at that point. But seeing the scoreboard flashing out, saying 5-1 and ticking over to 100 minutes was very satisfying.
We then knew it could go to 100. We were like, ooh.
Yeah.
And also on the scoreboard, they've sorted out the 0 in front of the seconds.
Yes.
That was delightful, wonderful. Neil, what was your moment of the match?
Well, I was going to say the same one, but I think what Paul's referring to was the fifth goal, but never mind. But I would say that just the best moment really was when we started playing around with the ball and we were doing the olays and olays, because we were keeping control of the ball and we were really just taking the piss out of Notts County. And I never thought that I'd ever see that. So I think that would be my, pick of the day.
Perfect. I'm sorry, I know people didn't like it, or some people didn't like it, but for me, it's Harry Smith waving their goalkeeper off. I mean, it just cracked me up, and it was like, I think Leighton Orient fans, some of them said, "Oh, he needs to feel loved at his club, otherwise he's a big baby." And then he's done that, and it's like, okay, 3,000 people have just fallen in love with you, given that horrible shithouse stuff. We very much enjoyed that here. So yeah, I'll put them out to a vote, and we'll see which wins. So there is some questions sent in. We've actually, I think we've covered actually some of them. So one of them was, were we nervous at 4-1? Another one was, should their keeper have been a bit more savvy? But the other one, I think I'll wait a second actually, because I think it does allude to all football anyway, and we'll wait for Jack to help answer it as well. But we will look forward to the match against Cambridge United, and Jack has been waiting very patiently on 2 different recordings, because he jumped in on the last one and it went all wrong, and he's jumped on this one as well. So Jack, from the Under the Abbey Stand pod, hello, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. Also fresh from a win yesterday, so yeah, feeling pretty buoyant for the start of the season. So I hope that kills you.
And there was a Notts County connection there, because they had their Notts County superstar. Did he play? Was it Ruben Rodriguez?
Yeah. They were just all over the park, pretty poor, and we were talking about it after the game and trying to identify, who'd featured was quite difficult. But yeah, Rodriguez started behind the striker, but they had so little. I wasn't particularly impressed by anyone. I don't want to be too disparaging, but yeah, there was just not much to remember about their performance. I think we might have got a bit lucky playing them on the first day.
We may well be the same, to be fair. I mean, one Notts County fan said, enjoy it, it's the only 3 points you're getting all season. And I was like, well, if that was true, that makes your team even worse. Yeah. You get relegated with only 1 win and we beat you 5-1. Surely that's worse for you. But before we get into yourself and the look forward, the question that was sent in, I've got in this section points of views, because we're united. You're also united, so you can join in with this one. Added time. So we had 9 minutes and 10 minutes yesterday, and I was really surprised that Matt made such a big point of it, because he doesn't normally do these kind of things. But what he was saying is he's worried about players being injured, because they essentially played yesterday 110, 111 minutes. So he's not disagreeing with the referees, he's disagreeing with the rule. But Paul, what do you think of the added time?
I mean, I can see where Matt is coming from a player perspective and being inside a 10. From a fan perspective, I can see that. I mean, it was only 1 game, of course, but I can see what we're trying to do here, and I think I've got early high hopes for it, to be honest. I think yesterday's game, and we can only take the 1 game, the game definitely flowed quicker. there was less hanging about, less wasting time. Now, I don't know whether that was because just the game or the game situation or that particular that first game, but it felt as though the experience of watching was a lot better. But we did win 5-1. But it did. Let's see how that feels like when we draw 0-0 against a bottom team or something like that. So, but my feeling was that what that rule is trying to bring in helped.
So, Jack, I saw a Notts County vlog yesterday, and they had the camera on at the point that 10 minutes for the second half came up.
Yeah,
his thing was, what's the point? What is the point of adding 10 minutes? We're losing 5-1. Nothing is going to change. I mean, I don't know. Did you guys have masses of added time yesterday or not?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we're 8 in the second half. So I think actually we saw a bit of a transition into this last season because there was, it's ever since the World Cup almost set precedent of just ridiculous added time, and I think that's going to kind of come into football. I think it's a good thing, they make the points about the amount of time the ball's on the pitch. I understand the point about injuries to players, but at the end of the day, it's their jobs, and I think people deserve their money's worth, but also clubs deserve to be, out there as much time as possible to be able to make a difference. And that 5-1 point is a really good point, and when you're getting pumped 5-1, you really just want to get back in and get away. But there's our survival last season and other people's peril were down to the odd goals. So I think even when you are 5-1 down and you're looking for a goal at the end or something, it might seem futile, but it's one or two goals can completely change your season, even if it is just adding to goal difference. So I think it's a good idea. It's a good initiative. It'll take a bit of getting used to, but I think it'll be good in the long run.
Yeah, and Neil, I know you had thoughts about our team specifically.
I think it will suit us because we are, and this showed yesterday, we are so incredibly fit, and we can keep on running right to the end. So I think it will suit us if we're 1-0 down. And I think we'll be absolutely livid when we're 1-0 down. When the ref puts the board up and there's only 3 minutes in the second half, we'll be wanting the 10. So I think in the long run, I think there's going to be more complaints about when we find it shrinks, which I think inevitably it will. Then we'll start complaining that we haven't got this 9-10 minutes in the second half, because when you're 1-0 down, you want as long as you possibly can, because as Jack said, that point that you might get from a late goal may be the difference between going up or not going up, or staying up or going down.
So you could tell this is a confident Sutton United, because last year we lost games in the last few minutes, and now we're just going, we'll smash these, it's fine. Right, so Jack, back to yourself. So I've got some questions for you. So a little bit about yourself. How long have you been supporting Cambridge United, and kind of what got you started with them?
Mine's a bit of an interesting story. I moved to Cambridge in 2012 after graduating as a broadcast journalist from uni. And that was my first kind of, introduction to Cambridge. I had family here, but had been here a couple of times. But yeah, moved in 2012 and immediately became a season ticket holder. So I was quite a new fan as it goes. And then in the 2018 season, the day after Sean Derry was sacked, incidentally, was when we did our first Under the Abbey Stand podcast. I made a lot of good friends at the Abbey, and we thought there isn't a fan podcast for Cambridge United, and maybe that's something we could change. And yeah, fast forward pretty much 5 years, and we're still going strong. And we've had a brilliant ride so far since we've started the podcast. Promotion and survival just about, and it's been and a couple of iffy managers and a few iffy players, but we've got a really good manager now and a great group of lads by the looks of yesterday. So yeah, there's positivity floating about at this very minute anyway.
We'll come back to this podcast in 3 months and go, God, what were we all talking about?
Yeah.
So could you do you have any match day traditions or superstitions that you have?
Well, we always tend to meet in the same place, but the walk to the ground is pretty there's a million different routes, but we always take the same route, the same group. And there's been a bit of a dispute at United with a supporters club, which is on the ground, on the land that the ground's on, but it's privately owned. We were going in there pre-games, but now the club have kind of repurposed an outdoor area to have a bit of a fan zone. So now that's become, since last season, that's become quite a nice thing. And it's just, you don't go straight into the stand, so you can go and you can see old faces and catch up with people. So that's becoming a bit of the new routine, which is quite a nice thing to do because, it's something that was lacking in our Newmarket Road end for a long time, and now we've got that facility. It's really nice.
Excellent. And do you have a sort of go-to memory of when someone says, "Why do you support Cambridge United? Why don't you support one of the big clubs?"
Yeah, it's a funny one. I mean, so when I moved here and started watching, we were in the conference and, surviving at best, really, just kind of, middle table, not really doing much and, kind of faffing about a bit. And then I just remember my first season there being really welcomed by kind of the wider community. And then I think the thing that stands out for me is the promotion playoff final at Wembley when we beat Gateshead to get promoted back to the Football League after a 9-year wait, and just being able to come back to the club and celebrate with the players. The fans were invited in and we got to celebrate with the players and the manager and the staff. And that just felt like a kind of community and a family. And that was like a really nice kind of, a really nice memory to hold and thing to celebrate. So I've been very lucky in my time. It's been a kind of gradual incline rather than too much difficult to experience. But last season was bad for the heart, so I hope this one's a little bit more straightforward.
We know that because I think it's 12 years now. There's some of our supporters with 12 years, and it's just been constant success. Ryman Leagues, the Conference South, so on and so on. So horrible. Stand them. We're jealous of them. So this one possibly be a bit tricky for you because obviously you've been because of that increase. But is there any player from your club's history that you would love to swap for a player? Don't say the player you don't want, but would you like to see in the squad today?
So do you mean would I like? Is there anyone who hasn't played for Cambridge who I would like?
No. Anyone that used to play for Cambridge that you'd be like, I wish they were still in the team.
I mean, it's going to be a super obvious answer, but actually, maybe not to people from outside, because I imagine a lot of people will think I'm going to say Paul Mullin. But no, Wes Houlihan is who I would want back in a heartbeat. I mean, the man was an absolute magician, and in the winter of his career, still made League Two football and the level of football he played look so easy, and it was just a pleasure to behold. And we didn't get to see as much of him as we would have liked because of COVID. We still got to watch him though, of course. But I think he's just one player that I will just be eternally grateful that I got to see in the flesh. And he was a huge part of the driving force behind Cambridge's kind of unlikely promotion, really, because no one had us tipped really to go up from League Two that year. And Paul Mullin and co certainly contributed, but Wes Houlihan would definitely be the man if I bring him back in a heart. I think I pay for him to come back.
Go fund me. So lots of people were saying this season that you guys are going to be not just relegated, but rock bottom. We used to that. We're always tipped for 20 or 20 something. So, I mean, obviously it's only one game and we're all very excited because we both won, but the pre-season and how are you kind of feeling about the season in general?
It's an interesting one, and we record every Sunday, so we will be recording a podcast, and we've been quite cautious with any sort of optimism, really, because on the face of our squad looked a little light, and I think really still does look a little light. But we've made some interesting signings, and a couple of them really performed well on Saturday. So I think we're always going to be tipped to be down there. We were tipped the last 2 seasons to be down there. That's fine. We're a small team as the league goes. We've got a small budget, but we're a really well-run club. And having had financial, issues surrounding the club in the past, and a lot of issues kind of in the back room, and rumours about politics at the club, it's nice to be in a position where the club's run properly by by a good group of people with input from the fans. So I think, I'm cautious about this season. And honestly, Mark Bonner has basically said we're not going to recruit anyone else. And I think we could maybe do with another attacking option and maybe someone to bolster the midfield, but that's not going to happen. So I think we might learn the hard way this season, because we were a little lacking in depth last season, especially when it came to the business end. We were very lucky to lose the penultimate game to Burton and then still contrive to stay up. But I think squad depth may be an issue. But then again, we recruited so well in January that there might still be a kind of conversation to be had when it comes to January. If we're going to need a couple more bodies through the door, then maybe Mark Bonner's already, earmarked a couple of people, and we've got a couple of youngsters out on loan. But I feel it could be a long season, and I feel like we could be very similar to last season. I think League One's slightly easier, probably the wrong word, but I think there's less quality in it than there was last year. But then I think we're probably, we've shipped out some pretty big players, two to Reading, which is disappointing. But yeah, we will see. But I'm cautious about this season, even after a great victory and a clean sheet.
Well, what was quite funny there is, as you're talking about growing slowly, good club, good people running, family support and all that, you could see these other two just both creeping forward going, oh yeah, tell us more, come on, that's exactly what's going on here at Sutton. So just sort of a wider question to everyone. So how does Sutton win this game? What needs to happen? So if I start with you, Paul, what do you know about Cambridge United, if anything? And
what I've just heard. No, I knew a little bit, but and knew that the view was that they might struggle, and fancied our chances a little bit. And then after yesterday's performance by us, thought really fancied our chances. But then watched the EFL goals last night and saw what Cambridge did, and so perhaps a little less so. So I think we could be quite an even match, but yeah, more of the same for us, and we'll be in with a heck of a chance.
So, Jack, putting on a different hat, how do we beat you is the question.
It's a weird one. These early cup games in a season can kind of just, I think, form, or not even form, is it? But everything just really goes out the window, and anything can happen. And I think because we're traveling to you, I think anything could happen. I mean, we've got a new goalkeeper and a fairly aging backline. So there's been a lot of people highlighting that maybe kind of balls over the top might be the thing to kind of catch us out this season. I would suggest, I mean, this is going to be sod's law, but I would suggest that we'd be pretty solid from set pieces, because we've got a good height back there, really good experience with Morrison, Ryan Bennett. And yeah, Stevens, the keeper, looked good yesterday on his debut for us in the league. But yeah, I think that there are questions about the age of certainly the centre backs we've got, and we are still missing Adam May, who's quite good for us in the middle of the park, although we didn't seem to miss him too much yesterday. But I would say, I think this season, very similarly to last, we were very guilty of shipping easy goals, and I feel like this, that could still be the case this season. We've kind of lost a couple of players and added a couple of players back to the defence, but I'm not sure we've necessarily bolstered it. Danny Andrew on debut looked quite good yesterday as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, kind of how it all pans out. It's so difficult to call when it's this early in the season, and you ride the wave of an amazing win, and then it all kind of comes unstuck when you make outlandish predictions and they all go terribly wrong.
Is that our Adam May? Neil, do you know? Is it Adam?
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Portsmouth's Adam May. So
yeah, that's Portsmouth's Adam. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, yeah.
We had him on loan.
So he joined us in 2020 and was pretty instrumental in the last couple of seasons, and he's kind of shifted from a more defensive role to a little bit further forward, and he's pretty versatile. We kind of use him in a couple of different ways. So he was a big miss, big injury last season, and a lot of the reason why we were down there, I think, was because he wasn't partnering Digby in the middle of the field.
Well, that would be a very interesting, him meeting up with Eastie again, wouldn't it?
Can I ask Jack a question, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
So do Cambridge take the cup seriously? Because we take everything seriously, and I think we look at the cups as being as a revenue generator, whereas I know some clubs would rotate, not play their full strength side for something like this, and equally with the EFL trophy.
EFL trophy, definitely we don't care about at all. It's much of a kind of, it's a bit of a pain, to be honest, to have to participate in that. FA Cup, we have really good recent success in. We had third round replay against Man U a few years ago. We got to play Leeds in the third round. So we've had quite a lot of success in the FA Cup. Couple of victories in the League Cup in recent years. I think a first round win against Birmingham in COVID times was quite good. But the League Cup, I would say, is kind of in the middle. It's FA Cup, biggest priority, League Cup, and then Pizza Cup very far down. But yeah, I would say we'll put out a good team. So we've got a new signing, Jordan Cousins, who should be really good. He's got really good kind of pedigree, coming from Wigan, but had been at Stoke, QPR and Charlton before that, and won cap for Jamaica last year. So he is set to play on Tuesday. So I think whilst we might rotate from the team at the weekend, it'll still be a strong side.
So Neil, what do you think we need to do to win it?
Well, we owe Cambridge one, because I think the only time we've ever played competitively, you beat us in the Cup 2-1, I think it was. And it was the same for Notts County. They had 3 cup wins over us yesterday. So we've exercised that genie. So I think, we will carry on from what we did on Saturday and expose you to pace, balls over the top, and a monstrous height, because we are a very, very, very tall side.
Yeah, we've got 6. Our right back 6'2", 6'3", and he scored yesterday because he was the little fella in the box that was left unmarked. So so they're giants. But one thing that won't bother you guys is obviously one of the things to our advantage is Gander Green Lane is very much like a non-league ground, and no one likes coming there, and you lot ain't going to care because you're right here a few years ago.
yeah, we've had plenty of experience dealing with that, and I don't know what the capacity at Gander Green Lane is, but we've not got a massive ground either. So yeah, I think there won't be too much to worry about from that point of view. It is just one of those things, isn't it? We're so early in the season that it's almost impossible to make a call. And we haven't been blessed with many winning runs in recent times. Well, certainly last season and the season before. So yeah, the likelihood of us winning 2 or 3 on the bounce is quite low. So you're probably quite lucky to play us after a victory.
Right.
I've got a question about Tuesday. Is it extra time, or does it go straight to penalties? Or because I don't think there's replays, are there?
I have no idea. But my prediction is based on 90 minutes or whatever, 110 minutes or whatever. But what we're going to do is there's been a brand new scheme, and a fan has been called into the changing room just before kickoff, and you get a few seconds to give your team a message. So Neil, what are you saying to the boys as they're just about to come out?
I've just already said it, haven't I? Let's carry on from Saturday. Let's just pretend we're still playing Saturday and just carry on doing, everything you did then.
Perfect. Paul, what would you be saying?
You're just 7 games from Wembley.
Excellent. Jack, what would you say to your boys?
And just bearing in mind, this is me speaking to my players. I don't mean any disrespect. I would say you don't want to lose to a team in the league below, because everyone thinks we should be in that league anyway. So yeah, that would be the incentive that I'd give to the players for sure.
Right. So what we're going to do is ask for a prediction at the end of full time. So whether it's extra time or penalties makes no difference to this prediction. So it's the end of the full time. Paul, if we start with you, what's your prediction?
Based on yesterday's goal fests in both games, I'm going for a 2-2.
Oh, okay. Jack?
I have to fly the flag. I'll go 2-1 Cambridge.
Lovely. And Neil?
I'm going for 2-1 the other way.
Okay. 2-1. And I'm going to go with... we're going to really get on your nerves, and we're going to go a 2-0. Because we will kind of just be at it, and your players are going to be like, hang on a minute, I'm not getting injured for the league. So that we've got a small squad. Let's just back off. If they want the ball, let them have the ball. None of my predictions ever come true. Don't worry about that.
No, mine neither.
What I tend to do is I start this off at the beginning of the season, then realise how awful I am, and I very quietly drop it partway through the season, so no one realises.
Yeah.
How many do you think you'll take, Jack?
There seems to be quite a lot of interest. It's difficult to know, really. I'm not even sure of the allocation, but I know, I think a few hundred, if we can. Yeah, but I know a lot of people who I saw on Saturday, certainly from our end, are going. So there'll be a noisy lot as well.
There is one definite fan. I think they were a Hopper, but they were a Cambridge supporter, but they ground hopped as well. And I think they came to the FA Cup game and they said it was their son's first away game that they came to watch Sutton Cambridge. And I was like, oh, did you realise that we're playing again in a couple of weeks' time? It's like, oh yeah, we're already sorted that. But that's it. Thank you very much for your patience tonight, gents. That is really, really, really appreciated. And that wraps up another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin. Thank you very much for listening and giving me your ear attention. It's going to work. Stick with it. Just let it brew for a while. It will work. Special thanks this week to my guests, not just for coming on, but for putting up with all the various different technical problems. We've thrown out the recording twice, I think it was. So Neil, Paul and Jack, thank you very much, gents. Thanks for all your thoughts as well. Thanks everyone for listening. As I said, please do like, comment, subscribe, do all those usual things on all the social media and on your podcast platforms. Leave us a review. We will be joined on Wednesday after the Cambridge United match to look forward to Barrow away. There's some words people have never heard said together. Look forward to Barrow away. But we'll be joined by Joe and Andy, and we have a Barrow fan coming on as well to talk us through it. So take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.
United! United! United!